Hey everybody, Ryan McCaffrey with IGN. We're spending a couple days here at Harmonix checking out Rock Band 4 with the entire Harmonix development team. I've got the product manager, Daniel Sussman, here. You've probably seen him elsewhere throughout the month here on IGN. If not, you will. And Daniel, I thought before we get really deep into the game itself, let's talk a little bit about the instruments. So
Sure.
You guys, they may look the same, but they are improved in a lot of interesting little ways. Now, for me, just picking this up, the new guitar, checking it out, comparing side by side, everything's quieter to me, number one, and I feel like there's a little less travel on the frets, which I'm feeling good about. A little stiffer on the strum bar, which I kind of like, although maybe this thing's just not broken in. But yeah, and I'm seeing no wood grain here, which I kind of liked on the old guitars. So yeah, I mean, what are the thoughts behind making subtle improvements to this new guitar?
Well, so a few things. One is that this is a pretty early prototype. We're working with Mad Catz to design, develop, and then manufacture the guitars and drums and the microphone. And where we are right now, these are basically the first shots off of the tools. And the tools are these massive steel presses that shoot plastic parts out. And so you can tell these are sort of pretty early just by some of the kind of cosmetics.
Doesn't have the smooth finish, the usual.
Plastics aren't as sort of tight as they will be. But we're super dialed on all of the sort of functional components. And in fact, what we're using as our platform is, are all the guitars that and drums that we built for the Beatles Rock Band, which were among the best peripherals that I've ever played.
Yeah, you'd iterated a couple of times by that point.
That's right. And then Mad Catz, obviously, they've made a lot of guitars and a bass for the Rock Band ecosystem over the years. And so, in terms of the strum, in terms of the buttons, and just sort of overall fit and finish, the whammy, and just sort of the kind of tactile feedback on the buttons, that's really that's where premium workmanship comes into play.
Yeah, and they've got the clout to pull that stuff off.
And the tribal knowledge, it's like
true.
It's this thing. This is not their first rodeo with Rock Band. They've been around the block a lot, and we have a lot of opinions. They have a lot of great technicians. It's like this is very much science.
So before we move on to the drums and talk about those, from what I'm holding in my hand here, what are you guys either aesthetically or mechanically and feel? Is this going to be pretty close to final, or are you still looking to make a couple of tweaks?
Well, a lot of it kind of, it's like a lot of where the improvements are going to come out of this are actually in the sort of robustness. It's like this is in test right now. We know the tools are not final, and so some of the kind of just the way the plastics fit together, the overall sort of strength of the plastics, that's all stuff that will get improved over the next couple of months. From a process standpoint, everywhere that we can improve the build quality of the guitar or the drum, we're looking at that hard. So, for internal components, it's got a more robust tilt than we've ever had. You notice that the buttons are kind of shorter throw, quieter on the touch. The strum bar is just it's got that sort of like bounce back. And these are all, subtle, but in my opinion, very important improvements that we're making to the kind of overall build quality and feel of the guitar.
So better long-term viability on the new guitar.
With the same sort of expectations, with sort of responsiveness and integration to the game. I think any conversation about hardware is sort of tempered by its implementation in the game, and one of the things that I'm really excited about is the degree to which our software is taking advantage of a lot of things that we have not fully taken advantage of in Rock Band's past. Things like the high fret buttons, the 5-way switch. It's like with a better tilt, I feel like we can do more in that space, and that's really fun for sort of the creative guys on the dev team to really sort of wrap their heads around and think about from a feature standpoint. What can they do with a guitar like this?
Awesome. Now, drums wise, looks almost identical.
Yep.
Maybe is there possibly a little less to talk about? What have we tweaked? What have we done on the drum side?
Well, our approach is similar actually, where we're looking to sort of improve fit and finish, and also just sort of the kind of noise factor of what it sounds like to hit the sticks. One thing about the drums that people have to remember is just the beating that these things are designed to take.
Literally.
So, exactly. I still remember going, it was my first trip to China in RB1 actually, is like, I sat down at a drum set and I played the drums the way that, you know, anybody who's playing the game would expect. And the look on these engineers' face, they're like, wait, you're gonna hit it that hard? You're gonna do what to these drums? And it's like, no, that's how these need to be designed. So this is a design that we feel is like super battle tested, you know, and we really didn't want to go back to the drawing board because quality is, you know, a big part of the Rock Band brand. And if we have something that we think works really well, then I feel like we have the responsibility to sort of pull that forward and not reinvent something that just needs, you know, that doesn't need to be reinvented.
The Rock Band 1 drums, your first pass at it, they were known for failing. People had these crazy homebrew DIY fixes. You iterated on them for 2, and then Beatles.
Yeah.
And so we're evolving these based off of the already evolved Beatles versions.
These are built off of the Beatles drums, and that is, you know, I think a lot of the sort of the hardware legacy at Harmonix is one of like very quick reaction to a lot of customer feedback. You know, we've been, your points about Rock Band 1 hardware are well taken. You know, there were a lot of issues in those drums that we worked really hard to address, you know, over the course of Rock Band 1 as a product cycle, and then when we had the opportunity to kind of take that step back and, you know, re-engineer the drum set for RB2 and again for the Beatles, you know, that was, you know, we actually learned a lot through that process, and we're applying a lot of that learning to these drums, you know, and that has to do with sort of the materials that we're using, you know, the quality of the rubber, the thickness of the rubber, the softness of the rubber.
The grade of the components.
Exactly, and then just sort of the way the components actually sit in the clamshell, and just sort of, we call this the bottom piece of the clamshell. I don't know why. Yeah, you know, just sort of the kind of squishiness there, that feels really good to me. It's something that we kind of, you know, we work really hard at. And, you know, there's a lot of kind of touch and feel components to what makes these instruments work or not, and that's something that you know, you can only develop with experience.
So last question on drums real quick. Will both the game and hardware-wise, are we going to get a cymbal kit? And I'm guessing that's probably sold separately, but is the cymbal kit coming back?
So Mad Catz is developing cymbals that will be designed for these new drums, and they're, you know, I think, you know, the same approach applies to the cymbals, where any opportunity for improvement is being taken, and, you know, that sort of falls in the form of like responsiveness, the same sort of issue around sort of noise and just sort of the, you know, how does the stick feel, kind of, you know, bouncing off the cymbal and all of that.
Will my existing cymbal kit from Rock Band 2 plug right in though?
It will.
Excellent.
Actually.
So real quick, microphone. I know we can't see a lot with that if you want to bring it into frame, but I know you guys were telling me off camera there's a lot of under the screen improvements for this. We just talk through that real quick and we'll wrap up.
So you know, we're putting a lot of effort into the vocal features of Rock Band 4 and sort of examining, you know, the way that people like to sing in the game, and we felt that it was really important to have a microphone that would sort of bring the best of a good singer to bear through their sound system. So, you know, we're looking at sort of increasing the gain. You can actually, you know, sing quieter and you'll still be projected through your speakers. And also we've raised the threshold for distortion. You can actually sing louder into the mic before it starts to break up, which is, you know, I know that's a pretty common issue that we've had with Rock Band microphones going all the way back to RB1. And, you know, we've moved a lot of those microphones, and they performed really well. They're super durable, and a lot of those same principles are being applied to this.
And they'll still work in Rock Band 4 as well, but
Absolutely.
If you want, we've got this just better microphone this time around as well.
And it's got a Rock Band 4 logo on it.
So we know which game it goes with.
Exactly.
With there's only one band game, right?
It's so funny.
That's it.
I can't hold a microphone without speaking into it. It's like, you
how
know,
it goes.
reflex reaction.
So there's our first impressions. Daniel Sussman, product manager on Rock Band 4, thank you so much. We'll be obviously seeing how these finish up as the final tooling, everything comes into place, but so far so good, feeling good so far. For more on Rock Band 4, keep it tuned to IGN First all month long.